So thank you all. I am going to come back down to earth, and I'm probably going to talk about this much technology. So what I want to bring to you today is our story of the last project we did. I will say it was the best project we ever did. My punchline is at the end of what success we had. So a lot of times we ask our customers what they want, and then we're like, yeah, but we know better. Or design teams will say, well, we're going to do this, we benchmark this, et cetera, but they haven't actually asked who they're working for. Every owner has a different culture, every owner has different operations, and so we need to also listen. And that's my experience with this project. But first, I want to give a shout out to all the veterans. I've been blessed with knowing a lot of military services, families, and personally in my family. And so today being Veterans Day, I want to thank every one of them and their families for doing and protecting our country and our world. So who are we? We are in Houston. We're not in Dallas. I always make fun of my Dallas friends. Houston is a very large city. It's got a massive Texas Medical Center where there are 54 member institutions in a very small area. And so we are in Houston. Primarily, we are moving to Austin. We are a system. So we have 3 hospitals. We have the main campus and then 2 community campuses. And we have the gamut of services for pediatrics and women's care for the high-risk pregnancies. We also have a health plan, and we also have accountable care organization as well. So a growing large system and continue to grow. So the story I want to talk about is the Texas Medical Center. So in the background of this photo is downtown Houston. In the foreground is the Texas Medical Center. It is huge unto itself. It's got over 100,000 employees that come to it every day. And the campus in the foreground is our campus. We are a pink granite environment, for those of you that know. And so this is the story of our medical center campus, and specifically our Legacy Tower, opened last year. And so who am I? So I am a licensed architect. That's where I started my career. I will say that because I also pick on architects a lot, but I can because I am one. I've been at Texas Children's for almost 18 years, and I've had the absolute pleasure and experience in my profession of adding almost 4 million square feet to the organization. So I mentioned I want to talk about Legacy Tower. It was a vertical expansion, and so it was 19 stories on top of a 6-story base. It was specifically for critical care. Now, it was predefined on this base, so all of its structure was predefined, its stairs, its elevators, its limitations, if you will, when you look at our story. But we were going to build 138 critical care beds for pediatrics. And so the story is, how do you decide what to do for critical care of the future? So why did we do this? Well, we had some serious problems. One was our pediatric ICU was built in 1991. It was crowded, it was noisy, it was dark. We layered in technology, so in 2010 we rolled out our EMR in Epic, and we rolled it out the best we could, but that just added more stuff to the environment. Critical care medicine, and Dr. Paul Kekia, our CVICU medical director, said it best. 25 years ago, these kids weren't surviving. So we have a lot of equipment and a lot of medical interventions with children that these kids just weren't surviving 25 years ago. So it's a great story that we'll be able to save their lives, but it had some serious consequences to our space. Our patient rooms were 161 to 270 square feet. That was the whole room. And you'll see as we go forward how that incrementally changed. And then we had limited space for bedside procedures, for code response. It was not a great environment. We were also denying care. We were actually having to turn away children that needed our help, and that's absolutely not part of our mission. So what can we do? Well, it's a little bit crystal ball. So you have a lot of opinions, you have a lot of input, you have a lot of feedback going both ways. And so how do we find out what the right answer is? So we said, well, how big do these rooms need to be? We know 270 square feet isn't big enough. How big do they need to be? So our first step, before we ever put pen to paper, was to do an early mock-up. Now we had a building of 30-foot grid, 30 by 30. So, okay, 15 feet wide. There, done. Well, we did this early mock-up, and what it told us was we needed and desired 360-degree access to the bed. And it generated, once we put all the possible equipment that could go into a room, a ventilator, an ECMO machine, a dialysis machine, that we needed 289 square feet just for the patient space. Well, that was bigger than any of our rooms. So then we said, well, clinicians, we're going to change. We're moving to a new building. What do you need? So we had what was called Blitz Week. So all the clinicians said, don't pull us in for an hour here or there. Let's just do it in a week. So we ran through 9 scenarios, best day in the life of, worst day in the life of our patients. And we said, what's our current state? What are our current workflows? And what does the future need to be? It was a lot of people for a very long week with a little bit of fun. So the Friday was the start of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. You all know it's a big deal. And those are our esteemed cowboy anesthesiologists, Dr. Stayer and Dr. Masad. But what that did is actually engaged hundreds of people for a lot of hours and a lot of coffee and an incredible amount of input. And then we said, well, what is everyone else doing? So we went to UCSF, who had just opened the Benioff Children's Hospital, and we went to Lurie. Lurie was about 3-4 years old at that time in Chicago. And we said, well, what are you guys doing that we can learn from? So we listened. We listened to our partners. And I will say children's hospitals aren't real competitors because there's not enough of us. So we like to learn from each other. So we had 25 of those same people that went through Blitz Week go on a 2-day tour, not with Gilligan. And we focused on these specific areas, and technology was one of them. But we also focused on the actual environment as well as how do we serve our families. We got a tremendous amount of feedback out of that and layered it in with the Blitz feedback. And then we said we need to listen some more to the actual customers that we serve. So we picked focus groups specific to critical care and specific to our heart center. We brought them in early in design. We weren't even through schematic design. And we asked them for guidance of how do we need to design this and what do we need to provide. So we targeted questions to them that we knew we wanted them to answer and not us. So some things are driven by regulation that you just have to do. But we said, well, what can we do for you? And so we call them the INGs. So tell us how you want an environment for healing. Tell us how you can learn, how you can grieve. And I focus on grieving because it was a huge answer to us. So we had 15 families represented. Some were repeat customers to the day, so their child had already been born there, raised there, if you will. We had families that had had their child there for 2.5 years. That child never saw the outside and was always in our NICU. And we had 2 families that lost a child. So it was a huge cross-functional group that really gave us some honest feedback. And so what did they say? So around respite, they didn't want to go out and get outside and go shopping. They just wanted to get away. I just want to walk around. I don't have to have a shopping mall. I don't have to have this. I just want to walk around. I want to go to the lounge just to release from the noise of the patient care environment. We had a big debate on rooms, windows or doors between the rooms. The family's like, ooh, that's kind of creepy. I don't want to know what's going on next door. It might be bad. Well, maybe my side's bad and they might be good. That seems creepy. And then they said the patient room is our home. It is my child's bedroom. Let me do what I need to do to make it their home. And I mentioned the grieving. So we had been going on a design process to have bereavement rooms. The families were way outspoken, I will say, to say, don't make me go to that room. Remember, 2 of our families had lost a child. And we're like, oh. And so why would you build something that's never going to be used? We would have built it had we not asked the questions. And then we tested. So a lot of people have done spaghetti diagrams, tabletop, workflows, et cetera. We did that. We did it before we approved schematic design. We did it on every floor. Now, we had some repeat design floors, but we did it on every floor, really focused on efficiency, patient safety, and involved all the clinicians involved. But that's very introverted. That's not asking our customers, it's really asking us, how do we want to work? It was great. It's a data point again, just like all the others. But then we did pre-construction simulation, and as far as I know, we did this in 2015. As far as I know, it's one of the first pre-construction simulations that organizations have done to really experience the patient experience. It was driving decisions to make sure we have what needs to be on what wall when. Do we have enough space? What does an overhead boom do to the workflow environment? Really to identify latent safety threats. So we knew where our biggest change was going to happen. It was going to happen in the ICU rooms. We were doing an OR MR and a cath lab MR, and so we simulated that. We built the rooms, we cut the windows, we put the doors, we pasted everything on the wall. And what it did was quite shocking. So remember, we had 138 ICU rooms we were going to build. So this is the nurse substation between 2 rooms. You can see where we had the PPE cabinet, the window from the substation into the room, the physiological monitors, and the door opening. So it was going to be an ICU slider door. Before simulation, designers put this all together. This is what we want to build. This is what it looked like after simulation. The PPE cabinet was rotated, the realization that it isn't just the substation nurses that need the PPE cabinet, it's everyone going into that room. Physiological monitors were put side by side so you distinctly knew which monitor went to which patient versus on top of each other where you're like, maybe it's left, maybe it's right. In doing so and raising the physiological monitors, you made the window larger so you can see more inside the room. And in fact, we realized the door was too large. Imagine if we would have built the first room the wrong way 138 times. Scary. Massive amount of money and disruption. So my message is, get it right the first time. Put the effort in up front. Most owners want to go straight to the solution. Most architects want to start designing. Stop, talk, listen, ask. So we tracked almost 2,000 data points. When you talk about data points, points of feedback through this whole process to say, can we resolve them in design? Can we mitigate them in workflow? Can we fix it in education? So we did a lot of extra work. A lot of people are like, oh, I was actually like that. I'm like, oh my God, we have to have another family session. I'm struggling with schedule. I'm struggling with budget. Do it, trust me. We had early engagement of frontline staff, constant engagement with those folks. physicians, frontline nurses, leaders, and we had consistency. So the people that were going to work in the building were the people we were working with. And then we aligned design with operations. So how many of you have actually designed a building and then it's operated totally differently? Well, I've done that. I'll share that in a minute. And I said, if we don't document how the workflows were assumed to work, shame on us. If we don't train the people that are going to work in here based on how the building was designed to work, shame on us. And then we integrated simulation iteratively at all the multiple phases through project delivery. So what does that mean? We absolutely have the right care in the right place at the right time, and that means patient safety. We also, by engaging all of the staff along the way, they're engaged, they're knowledgeable, and they literally moved in and went to work. But here's my punchline. This was a vertical expansion. The original building was not done with any of this. Now, did we have a family advisory council? Yes. Did we do some mock-ups? Yes. But we did not simulate those. We did not look at the real-time, real-life environment. At the end of that project, we had over 1,200 outstanding issues for a value of $11.3 million. That's changes. That's requested changes to the environment. This building had 31 outstanding issues for a value of $165,000. Did we invest $11.3 million in people's time and effort? Maybe. But I'll tell you what, we have made 0 changes to this environment. So to me, as a facility owner and manager and one responsible for project delivery, it was well worth that extra work. So I want to thank you for having me. My contact information is below, and you guys enjoy the rest of the time.
Thank you, Jill. Thanks for sharing the story.